God be the glory. To God be the glory. To God be the glory for the things He has done. With His blood He has saved me. With His power He has raised me. To God be the glory for the things He has done. Just let me live my life. Let it be pleasing, Lord, to Thee. And should I gain any praise, let it go to Calvary. With His blood He has saved me. With His power He has raised me. To God be the glory for the things He has done.
Good morning to the Triad, Spring Lake, Fayetteville, Fort Bragg. We are coming to you live from the beautiful studios of the WIDU radio station, your station for information and inspiration. This is Larry Dobbins, the duly elected mayor of our wonderful town of Spring Lake. But before we start, we want to thank and give honor to Wes and Sandy Cookman for making this beautiful moment possible, that we might talk to you about a multitude of activities that are yet going on in the world. And I am excited, but I think I'm more nervous than I am excited. But I'll tell you what, once I introduce my guest this morning, I'm going to sit back and relax and let her just have her way behind the mic. And we are looking at something that we're going to give away to our listening audience. So we need you to pay attention and be the first one in line when we make the announcement. So without further ado, I invited this young lady a month ago to come on, and of course her schedule at the time would not permit it, and I fully understood. But you know, God always has a way that Mama used to say is mighty sweet, and we glory in the sweetness of our Lord. But when I talk to my guest, and I'm going to tell you her name in a minute, I asked, I said, you know, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Well, let me just paraphrase that. Can anything good come out of Spring Lake? She was in total agreement, and I thought, well, perhaps I need to ask that question today. Can anything good come out of Spring Lake? Well, we know the answer. We know the answer, that a lot of great things come out of Spring Lake. So I think I have kept you in suspense long enough. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to some and present to others the guest in the studio today, Ms.
Good morning, Denise Murchison Payton.
You heard it for yourself. She has a beautiful smile, and the song that you heard as the prelude to God Be the Glory, you know, we just sat here and I meditated, and I tell you what, my heart is glad, and I looked at Dr. Payton, and even though she sung the song, she is still overjoyed and full of joy because of the great things that God has done for us.
Yes.
I have known her all of her life. I'm a few years older than she is, but I have known her all of her life, and As a matter of fact, I go back to her parents and her brothers and sisters, and we all grew up together in the little town of Spring Lake. So yes, the answer to the question, can anything good? Well, God blesses us so that things that come out of Spring Lake are better than good. But we're going to quickly get into our program for this morning. But before we do, we lost over the weekend two giants in the civil rights movement. We like to call them two champions of civil rights, and I know that there has been a tribute to Dr. Congressman John Lewis, and also to the Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian. And I've heard it said much of this weekend that we are now standing on the shoulders of those giants, and the things that we have gone through in this country, in this state, as African Americans, yes, we do stand on the shoulders of those giants. So without further ado, I'm glad to hear what Dr. Payton has to say. So she's going to further introduce herself. Dr. Payton.
Thank you, Mayor Dobbins. Yes, I concur that good things do come out of Spring Lake. I'm proud of my humble beginnings as the youngest of 7 children. And I often joke around and say all of my brothers and sisters got to be Ann Chestnut Hornets, and I've got the only green and gold diploma out of the 7 of them due to my age order, my birth order, and I'm a Trojan from Pine Forest. I refuse, actually, to allow anyone to say that I'm from Fayetteville. People want to make me from Fayetteville, and I said, no, I'm from Spring Lake, and I can go a little further back and say I'm from Manchester. And they don't know about that. But I'm very, very honored to be here. God has been gracious and good to me. But the one thing, Mayor Dobbins, that I have realized lately is when you're younger, you make a list of things that you want to do and things that you want to accomplish. But I realize, as you asked me to come and to speak today, and as I reflect on my past, everything that God has allowed me to do was never on my so-called list.
All right. Wow.
Never on my so-called list. Everything. And I'm sure God has a sense of humor, because he said, oh yeah, Denise, that's what you want to do? Well, no, that's not the way you're going to go. And, but I am strong in my faith and strong in my perseverance to work and to work towards excellence. Excellence is important to me. My family is so supportive. My mother and father were very supportive. My brothers and sisters supportive. So I had that cocoon, if you will. And so I'm just honored to be able to sit here. As a young girl, I used to listen to 1600 AM in Spring Lake. And that was our radio station.
Our station.
That was our station. And then whenever it started getting dark, we had to flip over to Radio Smiles because we were too far out. But WIDU has come a long way, and we thank God for the vision of this station.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I remember, like you, that on Saturdays we would listen to Mr. Bill Bowser.
Mm-hmm.
And, half of his 1 hour was spent on gospel, and the other half was spent on rock and roll.
That's right.
But it was what it was, and we did not complain. And sometimes we had to listen with what we call transistor radios.
That's right.
And sometimes out there in Spring Lake, that signal faded. But we held on to the music that we could listen to, and that became an important part of our culture. And yes, speaking of your family, now, I do remember how well your brother Howard sung.
Yes.
Now, tell me, because I don't think I've heard anybody else in the family sing. Or there are other songsters in the family?
Everyone sings except my brother James.
Okay. Okay.
But to go towards Howard, Howard was he loved music like I love music,
Yeah.
and he excelled in music. And I'm just going to take one point of privilege and say I think my Howard's voice has been reincarnated in my son.
Okay.
Because when my son sings, he transports me back to hearing my brother.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. So then you and your brother, well, everybody except James. Well, see, James might be more like me. We can sing, but we sing solo.
Okay. Well,
so low that
nobody can hear it.
But yeah, that's a wonderful attribute, the talent in your family, and that speaks volumes for how good God is.
Yes, He is.
And He gives us gifts that we can use to uplift His name and to let folk know that God truly is real. Okay, speaking of your children, well, before we get into some other things, because this is free-flowing, as you see,
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your two wonderful children and their talents.
My children are fabulous musicians. You know, whenever you are a young mother or a parent, you teach your children what you love. I had no idea that my children were going to be so exceptional in music. My daughter, Jeray, has just released her newest CD, and Finally Free. My daughter graduated from the University of North Carolina at the School of the Arts and is a superb soprano. Studied classically, as I did, but is a worshiper, and she's a minister, so worship music means so much to her. But she is phenomenal, singing all genres. And my son Jared, that's the singer and the choir director. If you're under his baton, you are disciplined. And my son's group, Jared, Payton, and the Voices, happened to win the choir competition for WIDU in 2012 and 2013. And so when they stand up and I look at them, and I really look at my children in awe, because it wasn't easy, and I had to basically raise them alone. And it wasn't easy, but I thank God for their gifts and their talents and their love of God. And as the Bible tells us, when you train up a child in the way he should go, you know, they won't depart from it. You know, they kind of got off the rails a little bit, let's be honest. I mean, that's life, but they are God-fearing children and exceptional musicians, and they have been a part of the WIDU choir for their anniversaries and different things like that. And so I'm very proud. My son just received his degree in Praise and Worship Ministries from Grace Divinity College. And my daughter has her bachelor's and her master's degree that she just received in the fall of 2019. So God has been good.
Yes, yes. And He will continue to be good. And I say that based on the fact that God does not want us to take our gifts and put them in a box. But because I have heard your children sing, Jared and Jeray. And I understand that they sang at George Floyd's funeral. Is that correct?
Yes, that was a difficult time. They asked me about it, and of course, with the pandemic, I was concerned. But I told them, I said, just take all the safety measures because you're becoming a part of history. Jeray is the one who sang "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and it has been requested, and the family has reached out, and so that was something. And I reckon back to me singing for Coretta Scott King in Raleigh many years ago when she came, and I remember being in awe at the amount of security that had to be present for that to happen. So yes, my children were a part of that movement, a part of history. And I really sat there, Mayor Dobbins, in tears, watching TV and looking at my children making history.
Praise God, praise God. Well, life does have its emotions.
Yes, it does.
And many times we can smile, we can frown, we can cry. But as your song so eloquently says, to God be the glory for all that He's done.
Yes.
Because everything we are and everything we have we owe it all to God.
Yes, we did.
Because, going back to our lives, we didn't have much.
No.
But we had each other.
That's right.
Your family was my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even count the number of times I may have gone over and eaten a biscuit off your table.
I'm certain that you did, since my mother was one of the best cooks in Spring Lake. Everyone loved to sit at our table.
And they were certainly, some of the more loving folk, because, right there in your community where you were, born and raised, were aunts and uncles, and
right.
And so God has really blessed us and brought us from a long ways. Now, so you graduated Pine Forest.
Yes.
But you're still a haunted at heart.
Yes. Yes.
And your undergraduate work?
Undergraduate work is at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. A&T Aggies, and I'm a diehard Aggie.
All right. What they say, Aggie born, Aggie bred. And
when I die, I'll be an Aggie dead. I just celebrated my 40th reunion last October. I graduated in 1979.
All right.
And so 40 years ago, I marched across that mighty stage there in the Greensboro Coliseum.
And there's more. What was the next step?
Well, the next step was 20 years later.
20 years, okay.
20 years later. I like to use that story because oftentimes we want to give up and not wait and not persevere. Life happens, and my parents passed away. I got married. I had children. And teaching. So it was 1999, because I had a degree in performance,
yes,
not in education. And I had placed third in the Metropolitan Opera auditions. I had been accepted at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, and I never, ever, ever intended to teach. Coming up on now 39 years of teaching.
Wow.
But I had a professor, I had a report to do, and no one wanted to go first. And this was the time before you could print your stuff off of a computer. You had to draw it, you had to get construction paper, etc. And it was Dr. Johnny B. Hodge, and no one would go first, and I went first. And he told me, he said, "Denise, I know you're a performance major, but you would be a great teacher." And I told him with everything in my being, I'm not teaching, I'm not doing it. But then life happens, and so I went to Fayetteville State University, picked up the education requirements, and took the NTE at that time, no praxis.
No praxis.
It was the National Teachers Exam, and I passed that test and started teaching, and that was in 1980. And started teaching music. I love working with students. Most of my students, even at Fayetteville State, they don't call me Dr. Payton, they call me Mama P.
All right.
I'm in all of their businesses, and when they're not in class, I'm texting and everything. So there's 20 years between my bachelor's and my master's degree, and there are 15 years between my master's degree and my doctorate.
Wow.
And I could have been satisfied with the master's, but one thing I promised my children was I was not going to live my life through them.
Right.
So when they graduated from high school, it was time for Mommy to find something else to do. So what better thing to do than to use your mind and to learn, because knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
And it was a grueling 7.5 years. It took that long. But I did receive my doctorate in education, and so I'm very, very proud of that. Sometimes I sit in awe because that wasn't ever on my list.
Right, never on your list.
It was never on my list. Neither taking the NTE was not on my list.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Well, God, I'm amazed. I told you first I'm nervous. Now I'm amazed, and you hear me stutter, right? That's real. I mean, I'm going to. You know what? I'm going to let this station go to break. I'm going to catch my breath.
Okay.
Because you have more to say. You have more to tell. I love your story. Okay, we're going to break here.
Okay.
Your station for inspiration and information. 1600 AM, 99.7 FM, WIDU1600.com. We are WIDU Fayetteville. We do radio. Follow us on Facebook at WIDU1600.
This is Pastor Stanford Aikens.
This is Bishop Morris Stanford Aikens Jr. from the Faith Covenant Fellowship Worship Center under the direction of Bishop Stanford Aikens. We're proud sponsors of the Wake Up Movement. God bless you.
Hello everyone, here's your forecast for the week ahead. We're starting Monday morning dry and in the mid-70s. Monday afternoon, the clouds will build once again, leading to scattered showers and thunderstorms. Some of those storms can become strong to severe Monday afternoon. Highs, though, still hot, back in the mid to upper 90s at times. A heat advisory is in place through much of the area for Monday, and temperatures stay just as hot on Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Zach Malak in the Weather Center.
We saved big money with our Progressive Home and Auto Bundle and used the cash to take a family vacation.
To Hawaii.
Who's up for a luau?
Yay!
This is not a real testimonial. Sure, customers can save big money with Progressive, but not enough to go to Hawaii. They'll probably use it for things like the mortgage and groceries, or even a travel magazine, so at least they can see pictures of Hawaii.
Aloha!
Yes, say hello to those beautiful Hawaiian beaches in that magazine. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Introducing Peacock, the new free streaming service from NBC Universal. It's hit movies, current shows, and live sports. News clips, trending bits, and timeless hits. It's Kim and Courtney, Seth and Jimmy, Hoda, Savannah, Fiona, and Shrek.
I'm an ogre!
It's the best of streaming and the best of TV, and that's why you can't not watch. Peacock. Watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com. These titles plus the English Premier League and Law & Order SVU streaming now. Content availability may vary over time. Some content requires paid upgrade.
Saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. It was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious is that grace appeared. The hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils and snares, I have
We're back, and we are talking with Dr. Denise Murchison Payton. Dr. Payton. I don't mind calling her that, and we appreciate her being here this morning. But there is at least one other thing that we want to share. Dr. Payton is an author, and we're going to give her some time to talk about her book. And then we have a gift for at least two people. And we're going to share that with you. Well, here's the gift. We're going to give away 2 copies of her book. and they will be given to the first 2 people who call in with their names. And you will be able to pick the books up here at the WIDU radio station. Without further ado, Dr. Payton.
Thank you, Mayor Dobbins. There was a recurring theme in my life as I was going through the ups and downs of parenting and then single parenting and trying to make certain that my children had everything. And my book is entitled Discouraged to Encourage, and the coin flips again. Now, we have the illusion that when you flip a coin, you call heads or tails, and whichever way it lands, you win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would liken this coin sometimes, and I don't mind being brutally honest because I am brutally honest to my core in my book, because I know I'm not the only woman who may have felt this way. But when my personal life kind of spiraled out of control, I told God, I said, God, you gave me all the flip side of the coin. For better, for worse, you gave me worse. For richer, for poor, you gave me poor. Sickness and in health, you gave me sickness. And I said, God, why don't I deserve the other side of the coin?
Mm-hmm.
And as I began to write this book, and I reminisce my chapters. I talk about my dreams. Of course, my dream was to be on the stage at the Metropolitan Opera. Then finding my voice. Whenever I would sing at my church, everyone would always look back at me and say, what kind of voice do you have? That's not the kind of singing black folks do. And I used to be very, very discouraged by that. And then my father reminded me that God had given me something special, that it was different. And when I got to the university, my vocal faculty, they said, you got it. And I didn't know what that meant. Mayor Dobbins,
yes.
you know,
yes.
homegirl,
yes.
Spring Lake.
Yes.
What does that mean, you've got it?
Got it, yes.
But my father always said, you let other people talk about how good you are.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you do it. So anyway, as I began to go through this, finding my voice and my journey and the coin, etc., I realized that the coin didn't just have to do with the marriage. In life, the coin flips again. To just bring it home, in March, Fayetteville State University Concert Choir and I were preparing to go on a tour. The coin flipped. COVID-19.
Wow.
Couldn't go anywhere. Okay, so did I win or did I lose? I love teaching. I love making an impact on my community. I love being involved in things that are for building up and not tearing down. And the coin flips again. Coin flips all the time in our lives.
Yes.
We might not understand that it's flipping for us. As I stated, I just put it with the marriage, the coin flip. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, why the coin flip? I'm good. I'm trying. I work hard. But I realized that a coin flip is not necessarily the answer, because if you flip the coin, it's heads or tails. If I say tails and it lands on tails, I won.
Yes.
So that's what God gave me. So the discouraged to encourage was there was a time in my life, a very low time, where I was discouraged. You wouldn't have known it because I kept pressing.
Right.
You wouldn't have known it. You wouldn't have ever known probably that I was ever discouraged. Mm-hmm. But I tried to be a builder and encourage and not tear people down. We all navigate through life very differently. I really don't have a problem with talking about the bad things. Many of us are very, very cognizant of the fact of being very secretive. But with my life, I want it to be open so that someone else could know they can make it.
Yes.
Especially women today, godly women who are trying to do the best that they know how, and how if they keep their hand in God's hand, how God can flip their coin where they're able to succeed. So it's not a long book, but I take you through some of the struggles in my life, and as I say, I open myself up, and there may be things that you discover about me that you had no idea of. The chapters are not long, but I was able to write this because of the nurturing and that village you talk about in Spring Lake. And just to put it in perspective with people, when I prefaced at the beginning that I have the only green and gold diploma in the house, there's 7 of us children, and there's 8 years between me and the last.
Yes.
So a lot of people that left away from here, they don't even know I exist because my sister was the baby. Because they're 8 years. And I think maybe the fact that that time of those 8 years, a lot of things happened in the United States. A lot of things happened during the Civil Rights Movement that I was able to take advantage of that my brothers and sisters were not.
Mm-hmm.
I have the only degree, the only one that was able to go to college. And so I talk about that. I have been very fortunate in being able to travel. Never thought I would go to Europe. God flipped that coin where I could go to Europe, and I could sing at Notre Dame and sing at the American Church in Paris and sing in Belgium and all of that. And that came through the goodness of Dr. Marvin Curtis. When he came here, he said, "Why in the world doesn't anyone know you exist?" And I said, "I don't push myself out there. I love to sing." And that's how I became the choir director at Fayetteville State University. The coin flipped again. Because Dr. Curtis said, "Denise, I'm going to Indiana, and I think you'd be the best one to take my place." And I said, wow.
Wow.
Here we go again. That was never on my list.
Wow.
Never on my list. And my brother jokingly picks at me and he says, "You are always singing. You are always teaching. When did you have time to write a book?" And I said, "Well, home alone, empty nester.
Yeah.
So do something constructive."
Wow. Yeah. All right. I am still amazed, but I do have an announcement there, Dr. Payton. We have 2 callers who have already won copies of your book.
Wonderful.
Miss Queen DeGraffenreid. You may know her.
Yes, I do.
Okay, good job.
Thank you, Queen.
Queen DeGraffenreid, you are a winner. Stop by the radio station and pick up your autographed book from Dr. Denise Payton. And the second winner is Angelia Jackson. You are the second winner of the book entitled Discouraged to Encourage. The author being Dr. Denise Payton. Stop by the radio station and get your autographed copy of the book. And the third copy of our book, so that the listening audience will know, is to show our appreciation to Mr. and Mrs. Cookman. They will get a copy of this as well. So congratulations to our winners.
Yes.
And may you all get something great from the writings. And now, may I go back for a moment? Remember the second song played that brought us back from the first break, Amazing Grace. People who know me know that there is grace, and then there's amazing grace.
Yes.
That's the love of God and the favor of God that just knocks you off your feet. You may have your list. You may have your list of do's and the things that you want, but when God says, I'm going to give you what you want. No, I'm going to give you what you need. I'm going to give you what you want, and then I'm going to overwhelm you with it. Now, that is amazing. That's one of my favorite songs. No matter who sings it, I try to sing it myself.
All right.
But sometimes when I do, I just hum it. Dr. But God's amazing grace. And you mentioned Dr. Curtis. I remember when our baby boy Derek was in the choir at Fayetteville State. His first year there was interrupted by meningitis. But one of the things that Fayetteville State did for him, they allowed him to remain on roll. They dropped him, or they withdrew him from those classes that required his attendance. But Dr. Curtis was preparing them for his spring concert, and it was in Canada. And so Derek was able, even from his recovery bed up at Duke University for 10 days of self-induced coma, he was able to maintain his standing in that class. And, you know, I'm really grateful to Fayetteville State for my 2 degrees and for bringing my baby boy through that bachelor's program and the great things they did for him to allow him to graduate on time. I had some instructors there and some staff members who kept an eye on my baby boy.
That's what we do. The irony in what you just said, Mayor Dobbins, is that Dr. Curtis carried me to Canada on that trip as a soprano soloist.
Wow.
Dr. Curtis took me to Europe as the soprano soloist for the Fayetteville State University concert choir. And that's another flip of the coin. I am so proud to be the choir director at Fayetteville State University. And I call myself an Aggie Bronc. The kids know that I support Fayetteville State 150%. As a matter of fact, for those of you listening, I'm wearing my blue and white today. Bronco pride.
Bronco pride.
But see, those were other flips of the coins as you were talking and saying that he would have been on that trip. And I was on that trip.
And while we're talking about how God moves, well, you taught at Spring Lake, well, at the time, Spring Lake Middle, Junior High, and their mascot is the Broncos. How ironic.
But their colors are blue and gold, like A&T.
Like A&T.
So the handwriting was on the wall.
Yes. And then we walk in the station and we see Mr. Wesley Johnson.
Yes.
And he reminded me that, Dr. Payton taught his daughter.
Yes, I do.
So I'll tell you, you know, God just moves in ways that just that are just wonderful. You know, we know people, we connect with people that know other people. And that's probably why I think it's important for us to maintain our character, for us to be who we are 24/7, because people will always remember something about us. And when they can remember and then smile upon that memory, oh, wow, that's another thing to be amazed about. And again, I go back to the glory of God. Now, you did touch on some of your travels. Any that you missed out on sharing with us? Let me see, Europe, Canada.
Well,
United States, of course.
Of course. With Fayetteville State in 2013, I made my conducting debut at Carnegie Hall.
Okay.
Fayetteville State Concert Choir had a 30-minute prelude recital. I was so excited. My students stood on that historic stage and did a 30-minute program, and I was able to make my debut as a conductor. And then with my chorale, the Heritage Restoration Chorale, took them to Carnegie Hall in 2017, performing the music of Stacey Gibbs. I performed all over, not many places that I haven't. As a college student, up and down the eastern seaboard, all the way across Wisconsin, all the way down across Atlanta and Alabama, etc. I'm a part of the National Association of Negro Musicians. We just celebrated 100 years in Chicago last year, and I happen to now be the president of the Intercollegiate Music Association that was formed in 1960, and it has to do with 13 to 14 HBCUs in North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, and traveled all around, traveled with ensembles as well as on my own. My family used to be concerned. I was a part of the Longleaf Opera Company in Chapel Hill, and I don't know to this day how I could leave work at Spring Lake Junior High, drive to Chapel Hill, and go through 4 or 5 hours of rehearsal and drive back and get up and go back to work the next day, only by the grace of God, because I sit there. Yeah. But when I actually started my teaching career, I started teaching at Monroe Avenue School in Richmond County. Yes. And it was a 4-6 school, and it was 69 miles one way from my door to Monroe Avenue School, and I drove that for 2 years. And I had a baby, my youngest child. I was still getting up through the night with feedings. Wow. So the coin flipped again, and Dr. Breeden Blackwell was the assistant principal at Pine Forest when I was a student. And I called him on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock. Yes. Who does that? Yeah. And I said, Dr. Blackwell, I hear you need a music teacher. And of course, he didn't know who Denise Payton was, so I had to say, this is Denise Murchison. Right. He said, hey, Denise, how you doing? Come see me tomorrow. Coin flip. He took me around the school. He said, okay, you got the job. Wow. And I stayed at Spring Lake Junior High, which became Spring Lake Middle School, until the Lord flipped the coin and I went to Fayetteville State. Wow. And now I am coming up on my 12th year. 12th year. At Fayetteville State University. And this gives you, what, 40-some years? Almost. Almost. But I started in the lower ranks. I started a teacher assistant, then a teacher. Wow. And so I've come all the way up through it, and so that's where I look at and the thing about my book of how God really flipped my coin again and again and again. Yes. And I don't know where we'll go again, but I'm going to trust the Lord on the flip of the coin. That's right. And you'll come up a winner because you're on the Lord's side. Yeah, and while you were talking, some thoughts really just ran through my mind. And guess what? Now, when I opened my mouth, guess where the thoughts went? They're gone, but they'll come back. They'll come back. Yes, they will. Yeah, but they'll come back. But and I'm going to let you say a few more things. I got to come back with that thought. I got to find it wherever it is. Continue, if you will. Yes, let's talk about the importance of the arts. We're going through this pandemic, and I want to not be an alarmist, but as much as I love to sing and as much as I love to direct choirs, singers have to be especially careful because the droplets go so much further with singing. And I've been on several panel discussions since COVID-19 for choral directors, and they're saying we need to be 15 to 20 feet apart, and that it may be 2021 before you get a chance to hear a live choir again. Those are very sobering statistics, and I get very, very concerned when I see people singing close together and not following those. And it's very, very important. The voice is a gift from God, and we have to take care of it. Yes. It's not invincible. We don't have the ability to send ours into Edwards Music to have it repaired. Yes. So we have to be very mindful of that. And I'm glad because that was one of the thoughts that I had about how we can continue to sing a song. And I once heard a sermon, how can we sing a song in a strange land? Yeah.
So it goes
Psalm
back.
136.
Yeah. You got it.
How can you sing the Lord's song in a strange land?
And so, if we paraphrase that, how can we continue to sing in strange times, such as we're going through? But you did, sound the caution that, we can still do it, but be sure to keep, our distance and not, get too far out there and violate those safety measures that will cause us to get ill or cause someone else to get sick. So, we can survive, but we just have to do the right thing. And one of the questions too that I asked you, and our time is running short. One of the things too that I asked was the fact that, and I saw this, and I'm a witness to it. One of my church members, 93 years of age, was confined to the hospital, and I don't want to get too much into her personal life, but when we would go, we would sing songs, and for very brief moments, she would sing and join in with us and sing and clap. So there's something about music, and you're the expert here, but it's something about music that it brings us back to times and events in our lives that help keep us alive. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I know what you mean with patients who may suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's or just simply have not had their brain stimulated. Sometimes we just kind of push people to the side, and that shouldn't be. But those songs in that long-term memory, you're not going to forget those. They are embedded. Most patients, research shows, that suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia, they don't remember the newer things that they learned. And I'll take a point of personal privilege, not divulging any name, but I'm also a deaconess at the church and would travel with the pastor whenever he would give communion. And we had one, and she used to always tell me in her good days that she loved to hear me sing. And I happened to be on the rotation that time. And they were singing songs that were kind of current today. And I just leaned over to her and started singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know." She wasn't able to verbalize a thing, but her eyes shined to let me know she understood. And so that long-term memory stays there. And you'll find that they will remember every word. Every word. But music is joy, and music is precious, and music is life-changing. And we need music in a time such as this. But even in the making of music, one has to be careful today because the coin has flipped again.
Yes, that's right. So well put, so well said, and so informative. I tell you what, my heart is gladder now than it was an hour ago, because I have really been enlightened, and we're just going to keep in touch through the love and the Spirit of God, and you being still a neighbor.
That's right.
And I tell you, I just can't put in words all that I need to say, but I'm so glad that you came, and may God bless you. May God bless your children, and because again, we just go so far back that life is just grand, life is beautiful, just knowing a beautiful young lady like you. So we're going to ask our keyboard operator or switchboard operator, whatever they call him. He's going to cue up something.
My sound engineer.
Yeah, a sound engineer. Thank you. And we're going to go on and close out. But to God be the glory through His amazing grace and all those wonderful songs that we carry in our heart as we worship and serve God, and not just God, but serve mankind as well.
Yes.
So thanks again, Dr. Payton, and two lovely people pick up their books, Angelica Jackson and Queen DeGraffin Reed.
And I will autograph them for you.
Absolutely. And I will give the Cookman family their copy.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mayor
All
Dobbins.
right. God bless you.